China has pulled off something of a magic trick when it comes to oil independence.
Cut 90% of its crude oil purchase from the US. Because of Trump's tariff war with China, China is now purchasing
While you were filling up your gas tank or shopping for groceries, something major was happening halfway around the world. China quietly shut the door on American oil. For 5 consecutive months, not a single barrel of US crude made it to China. No announcement, no press release. Imagine running full speed in a marathon, and someone suddenly ties your shoelaces together mid-race. That's what just happened to the US energy market, and no one saw it coming. According to the Financial Times, China and Russia have shifted over $19 billion worth of oil deals into yuan, completely bypassing the US dollar. But this isn't just about oil, it's about you, your gas prices, your grocery bill, and your energy costs. It all began quietly back in June 2025. China halted all imports of American crude oil, and there was no explanation. For 5 straight months, US oil exports to China dropped to zero. At first, it looked like a minor disruption in a complicated global system. But beneath the surface, it marked a major shift, a deliberate pivot in global energy alliances and economic power. While the US stayed still, China was busy locking in long-term oil deals with Russia, Iran, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. But what really matters isn't just who these deals were with, it's how they were settled. For the first time on this scale, they were done in Chinese yuan, not US dollars. This is more than just an economic shift, it's a strategic geopolitical move. For decades, the US dollar has been the standard currency for global oil trade. That dominance gave America leverage, credibility, and control. Now, that dominance is being chipped away. Every oil contract that leaves out the dollar weakens its role as the world's reserve currency, and that has serious consequences, not just for Wall Street, but for everyday Americans. That $19 billion, which could have run through American banks and supported US energy companies, is now fueling a financial system where the US has little say. This shift, quiet but calculated, isn't just about energy. It's about global power. It marks the beginning of a new world order, one where America's role is increasingly being challenged. What started as a silent shift in global trade is now having very real consequences at home. Let's start with gas prices. When China walked away as a major buyer, US oil producers suddenly had too much supply and not enough demand. That should have driven prices down, right? But global markets don't work that way. Lower exports lead to reduced production, tighter profit margins, and eventually, higher prices for consumers. If you paid $3.10 a gallon last week, don't be surprised if it's $3.25 next week. This isn't just about oil sitting in tanks. It affects everything: shipping, refining, transport. And when those systems slow down, the costs trickle down to you. You'll feel it again at the grocery store. Imported products, already burdened by tariffs and port delays, now face pressure from a weakening dollar. From shoes and electronics to baby formula, prices are creeping up. Maybe not enough to make headlines, but enough to stretch fixed incomes. And this is just the start. American farmers are taking a direct hit. China didn't just back off oil, it slashed US farm imports too. In the first half of 2025, agricultural exports to China dropped by 53%. Soybeans are down 51%. Almonds, dairy, livestock feed, all left stranded. Domestic markets flooded, prices collapsed, but only here at home. Meanwhile, China has moved on, cutting new deals with Brazil and Argentina, while American farmers are left with unsold crops and rising debt. In California, almond growers are facing new Chinese tariffs. Many are delaying planting or downsizing operations. Some are already going bankrupt. Chapter 12. Farm bankruptcies are up 55% in just a year. This isn't just economic strain, it's the unraveling of family legacies. Shipping bottlenecks are adding to the chaos. Ports like Oakland and Long Beach are stacked with containers full of American goods, perishable and seasonal, sitting idle for weeks. The result? Missed delivery windows, broken contracts, and damaged business relationships that subsidies can't fix. And even if you're not a farmer or in logistics, you're not immune. When grain and soy meal costs rise, so do the prices of eggs, chicken, and beef. You'll see it on your grocery bill, your heating bill, and your back-to-school budget. This isn't some abstract foreign policy issue. It's a slow economic squeeze that hits you in small, painful ways. On your receipts, in missed payments, and in the growing anxiety about what comes next. China didn't just stop buying American oil. It locked the door behind it and started building something new. New contracts, new refineries, new banking systems. Every move was part of a bigger plan to cut the US dollar out of the equation entirely. Oil still flows, but now it's priced in yuan, processed in Chinese facilities, and settled without any involvement from Washington. While Beijing builds, Washington scrambles. The US response so far? Tariffs, retaliatory measures, emergency subsidies. But these are just short-term fixes, political fire extinguishers. They don't address the underlying issue. A 50% tariff on Indian goods might look tough, but it won't change the fact that global trade is evolving, and it's leaving the US behind. Other countries are watching. What China started, BRICS, is echoing. ASEAN nations are adjusting. Even parts of Europe are experimenting with non-dollar trade. This isn't a passing trend. It's a seismic shift in the foundation of global finance. Nations are no longer asking if they should reduce their reliance on the dollar. They're asking how quickly they can do it. The US didn't just lose a trading partner, it lost control of the narrative. And if this were only about oil, we might have weathered it. But it's not. It's about global influence, economic power, and the future of America's place in the world. But the damage doesn't end with oil pipelines. It's seeping into every part of the American economy. In the energy sector, the US didn't just lose a customer when China walked away. It lost control. Overnight, demand dropped, throwing oil pricing models into chaos. Domestic producers cut shipments, inventories swelled, and crude prices began swinging unpredictably. One week, you're paying $3.10 at the pump. The next, it jumps to $3.45, and no one can explain why. It's like trying to drive with a broken GPS and a busted fuel gauge. Meanwhile, agriculture is quietly bleeding. With China no longer buying American soybeans, almonds, and dairy, farmers are drowning in surplus. Prices have dropped, sure, but that's not necessarily a win for consumers. It means losses, layoffs, and farmland left unplanted. Farmers aren't celebrating lower prices. They're calculating how many seasons they can survive. Cheaper almonds at the store come at the cost of bankruptcies in rural communities. Let's talk about your savings next. With more global trade moving away from the dollar and toward currencies like the yuan, the US dollar isn't the global pass it once was. As its influence declines, so does its value. Gradually, quietly, but unmistakably. If you have a retirement account, a 401k, or a college fund, you're already feeling the squeeze. The dollar hasn't crashed, but it's stumbling. And the scariest part? Most Americans won't realize what's happened until their purchasing power has already slipped away. Trade has become a trap. As more countries ditch dollar-based deals, US import costs are rising. That $40 pair of sneakers now costs $55, not because of better materials, but because of tariffs, shipping issues, and the fact that America is now shopping in a world where everything's marked up and no one gives discounts for paying in dollars. Hovering over all of this is the political fallout. The US once set the terms of global trade. Now it's negotiating from the sidelines. Global summits, where Washington used to lead, are now stages for other countries to take the spotlight. The nation that used to write the rules is now trying to catch up, and that shift should shake anyone who believes in American influence. This isn't just a market hiccup, it's a full-scale reset. And if we're not paying attention, we won't just be watching from the outside, we might be priced out altogether. Because this isn't only about barrels of oil or financial contracts, it's about power shifting hands. Quietly, deliberately. When $19 billion in trade moves without a single US dollar involved, the message is unmistakable. The world isn't waiting for America anymore. It's already moving on. For more updates and deeper insights, follow our channel and stay informed. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Now let's rewind a few weeks. President Trump put Russia, and any country buying Russian oil, on notice. His warning was strong but vague. "We'll be doing quite a bit of that," he said. What exactly that meant, no one knew. But the implications were real, and while politicians speak in broad strokes, everyday Americans are already living with the consequences. Some don't even look at gas prices anymore. They have no choice but to fill up. They have to get to work. They have to make a living. But they're starting to feel the pinch. That extra gas tax? It's pushing families closer to the edge. People who drive for work are spending hundreds more each month. The impact is real, and it's growing. A financial domino effect is unfolding. As China and Russia strengthen their alliance, they're cutting the US out of the global oil supply chain. According to Bloomberg, just 48 hours after both countries imposed retaliatory oil tariffs on the US, fuel prices in several American states jumped between 7% and 12%. If the US doesn't act fast, experts warn gas prices could break the $7 per gallon mark in coastal states within weeks. Starting to think this isn't just about inflation? You're right, it's not. These price hikes aren't just market coincidence. They're the fallout of a geopolitical conflict that Americans were never asked to join, but are now paying for. This video exposes what's really happening, what triggered Trump's fiery response, why China and Russia feel bold enough to cut off the US, and how this quiet collapse of American influence could reshape your life in the years ahead. In September 2025, China and Russia didn't issue subtle warnings. They made a thunderous move, hitting America where it hurts most, its energy supply, by slapping a stunning 500% tariff on US oil imports. This wasn't just economic policy, it was a geopolitical earthquake. Wall Street shuddered. Washington froze. Publicly, China and Russia called it a measured response to years of US sanctions and trade pressure. But behind the scenes, this was something much deeper. It was a surgical strike aimed straight at America's core vulnerabilities, its energy, its trade dominance, and the global strength of the US dollar. For years, America touted its energy independence, boasting of shale booms and export records. But with one decisive move, that illusion was shattered. A 500% tariff doesn't just shrink profit margins. It disrupts supply chains, undermines trust, and sends a loud, clear message. The old rules no longer apply. And here's where it gets personal. Nearly every product you use, from the apples in your fridge to the phone in your hand, relies on fuel to get to you. Over 98% of goods in America are transported using oil. So when fuel prices spike, even just 10%, it doesn't stop at the gas station. It pushes production costs up, hikes shipping rates, and inflates prices across the board. This isn't speculation. It's already happening. As Reuters recently confirmed, gasoline has become one of the key drivers of inflation in the US, squeezing households that are already stretched thin. So no, this isn't just China and Russia pushing back. It's two global powers applying calculated pressure to America's weak points. And the most chilling part? They did it confidently. No flinching, no hedging. Because a 500% tariff isn't just a trade barrier, it's a signal. A message to the world that China and Russia no longer fear US retaliation. They're testing America's limits, and so far, they're not backing down. When governments clash, it's never the officials who feel the pain first. It's the people. And this time, the blow is hitting faster and harder than most expected. Across the US, Americans are waking up to a harsh reality. Every time you fill up your gas tank, you're paying for a global power struggle you didn't sign up for. This isn't a tax Congress passed or something you voted on. It's an invisible surcharge, extracted right from your wallet, driven by decisions made thousands of miles away. Supermarket shelves may still be full, but what's missing is affordability. A carton of eggs that used to cost $3 is now pushing $5. Bread, milk, frozen food, prices are climbing steadily. You don't need to be an economist to know something's wrong. You feel it every time you pause at the checkout, wondering what you can afford to leave behind. For small business owners, it's no longer about shrinking profit margins, it's about survival. One shop owner in Kansas summed it up. Restocking costs went up 35% in 3 weeks. I'm not sure I'll last another month. The ripple effect is reaching deep into the heartland. American farmers, once proud suppliers to the world, are now watching vital trade deals vanish. China, once one of the biggest buyers of US soybeans and pork, has shifted to friendlier trade partners, just as American fuel costs are spiking. The result? Farmers are hit with a devastating combination: soaring production expenses and collapsing export markets. And yet, some still ask, why should I care about a tariff imposed 6,000 miles away? Because tariffs never travel alone. They ripple, they infect, and they hit the innocent hardest. What began as a high-level geopolitical chess game has become a street brawl, and everyday Americans are the ones taking the hits. Let's be honest, that 500% oil tariff isn't just disrupting markets. It's shattering the illusion that America is immune to global consequences. That illusion is gone. And for millions of families struggling to make paychecks stretch through rising prices, this isn't some far-off theory. If anyone was expecting a peaceful resolution, they were reading the wrong century. In Washington, the reaction was predictable: emergency meetings, press conferences, and vague promises of relief. Fuel subsidies were floated as a quick fix, but here's the problem. Subsidies need funding, and the US national debt just passed $37 trillion. Throwing subsidies on top of that isn't a plan. It's panic disguised as policy. While America scrambled to stop the bleeding, China and Russia turned up the pressure. They announced an expansion of their energy alliance with a major twist: no more US dollars. Oil, gas, and infrastructure deals would now be done in yuan, rubles, or any currency not tied to the Federal Reserve. This wasn't just an insult, it was a strategic breakup. A clear message: this isn't just a power shift, it's a rewrite of the global rules. Quietly but decisively, other nations began following suit. India and Saudi Arabia, long considered reliable Western partners, started renegotiating their energy deals, also moving away from the dollar. There were no bold statements or flashy announcements, just calculated moves by players who understand that the winds are shifting. As CNN Business put it bluntly, 500% isn't a tariff, it's a message. The Atlantic was even more direct. America's no longer leading the negotiation, it's reacting. Wall Street got the message. Investors began ditching dollar-based assets before Washington could issue any reassurances. Gold prices rose, energy commodities surged. Foreign bond funds, once considered niche, suddenly looked like safe havens in a storm. Back home, economists tried to make it real. Tighten your budgets, prepare for another wave. Not exactly comforting bedtime reading, but it was the truth. This isn't just a market correction, it's a global realignment. Power is shifting eastward, and the dollar, the world's longtime financial king, is slowly losing its crown. America, once the dealer at the global economic table, is now just trying to stay in the game. And as the rest of the world moves quickly and quietly, one uncomfortable question echoes in the halls of power. If you're not leading the game, are you even still playing? When fuel prices spike, it doesn't just hurt at the pump. It disrupts the entire system that modern life depends on. And this time, the disruption isn't isolated. It's global, coordinated, and relentless. Energy was the first domino to fall, as it always is. Gasoline, diesel, natural gas all surged in price, not because of scarcity, but because of fear and uncertainty fueled by politics. This isn't an oil shortage, it's a trust shortage. And when trust disappears, prices soar. Gas stations didn't need an official memo to raise prices. All they needed was a reason, and a 500% tariff was more than enough. But energy is never just about energy. It's the lifeblood of logistics, transportation, and production. In a country built on highways and 18-wheelers, what started as a ripple turned into a tidal wave. Trucking costs exploded. Air freight prices surged. Shipping hubs slowed to a crawl. Deliveries that used to take days now take weeks. And the costs? Add 15% if you're lucky. Agriculture, the backbone of America, didn't bend under pressure. It cracked. Farmers already running on razor-thin margins are now dealing with a double hit: skyrocketing fuel costs and a disappearing export market. The crops are still growing, but buyers like China are gone. On Wall Street, the pain was quieter, but deeper. The once invincible dollar started to slip. At first, it was subtle, then undeniable. Stocks stumbled, spooked by rising inflation and global uncertainty. Investors didn't wait. They jumped, moving money into gold, commodities, and foreign bonds. US Treasury yields climbed. Not because the economy was booming, but because confidence was fading fast. And in households across the country, what was once an abstract geopolitical standoff became very real, very quickly. Utility bills crept up. Water costs followed. Monthly budgets were stretched to the breaking point. At the grocery store, people have stopped choosing between brands. They're now counting how many calories they can afford per dollar. In a country that once symbolized abundance, families are now treating meat like a luxury item and postponing dentist appointments like it's part of a budgeting plan. And yet, policymakers keep insisting everything is manageable. But let's call it what it really is. This isn't just inflation. It's slow-moving economic attrition. The kind that doesn't make headlines, but chips away at everyday life. It looks like colder homes during winter, cheaper meals with fewer nutrients, longer drives to find affordable goods, thinner wallets, and a quiet, growing frustration that no one in power seems to hear. This is the real cost of a fractured global system, and the burden is falling hardest on the people who had the least control over how any of this started. All it took was one number, 500%, to shake the foundations of a superpower. If China and Russia are still holding the stronger hand, the question now is, how many more painful numbers can America handle?